Wisdom is not something you can buy or something that occurs overnight. Wisdom is the quality of having experience, knowledge, and good judgment of being wise. That's the definition of Jordan Palmer and his journey of high school quarterback to the NFL. Younger brother of Carson Palmer, Jordan is taking his years of playing the position to now mentoring some of the best quarterbacks and quarterback prospects in the country. Today, I sit down with Jordan to discuss his quarterback summit and the wisdom he offers his athletes. I'm Paul Higgins. This is Coach's Corner, and all the action starts right now. Jordan, first of all, I always like to congratulate the athletes that I covered in high school that go on to do great things. So, congratulations.
Thank you so much. It's been a blast, and it's just been a byproduct of being around a bunch of amazing people and learning from the people who did things right and the people who didn't. And I'm in a unique position where I get to give it away now.
So, for the people that don't know, right, that aren't in the myopia football and in that world, can you tell us what you're doing since you left the NFL and how that's now parlayed into a career?
Well, you know, I like to think that I have a very unique perspective over football and in particular quarterbacks. You know, I was a guy who only played my senior year of high school. I tried out for all the things. I didn't get invited to any of the things. I had one offer from a school that I did not want to go to. I almost contemplated walking on instead. And then I put together a good college career, and I had, not a lot of interest in the NFL. I was a late 6th-round pick, got cut right away, signed an arena deal and a UFL deal. So I have this struggle of a lot of lows in my playing career, and I ended up scraping together, the better part of a decade in the NFL. But I also kind of lived my brother's journey, and the top recruit, #1 pick, Heisman Trophy. Up until recently, he was the highest paid player in the history of the NFL. But I have both perspectives on it, and so for me to be able to do that, nowadays I get to give that away to quarterbacks who are kind of on their QB journey, right. Kind of the term I use all the time. And so middle school, high school, college, NFL, and I get to take all those things that I learned from that unique perspective and give it away and help guys kind of move forward in their career.
Let's go back a little bit to high school. How was your high school experience? And then you went on to college, and looking at your years in college, you progressively got better. And if you can explain why you progressively got better, where some athletes at quarterback do not get better as they progress in college.
Yeah, my high school career was unique because I started off at Santa Margarita, and I went there my freshman year. I had just come in following my brother, who won, he went 27-1, I think. He started his junior, senior year. They won championships. Jim Hardigan was building a really awesome program. And so I came in as a freshman, and it made a lot of sense for me. Even though all my friends went there, my brother just graduated, and I loved Santa Margarita. Bob Johnson had just gotten back into coaching, and he was a guy that Carson started training with in 7th grade, and Carson's 5 years older than me. So a guy I've been around a long time. When I was a kid, I wanted to be Rob Johnson. Yeah. He was playing at USC. It's the only thing I really knew. And so it made a lot of sense for me to do that. And I transferred to Mission Viejo my sophomore year, and I didn't really play on varsity until my senior year. I played quarterback my senior year. My junior year, I played a little bit of receiver and whatever. We had a guy, Billy Hart, who went on to USC. And so as I went through that career, I always trained as a quarterback. I always identified myself as a quarterback. I was just never very good at quarterback. And, even my senior year, we went 14-0. We were one of the top teams in the country. And both my running backs scored the ball every time I touched the ball. They scored a touchdown every time they touched the ball, and I got yanked at half every week. And so we went 14-0, and it wasn't because of me. And so, recruiting, people didn't call back, and I was basically 6'5", had a good last name, and there was only one school that really said, we want to build this thing around you, and that was Texas El Paso. Yeah. And I went there my freshman year. I moved from Dana Point, California to El Paso, Texas. I'm trying to think of something more drastically different.
Culture shock.
and ended up, really being unhappy my first year there, redshirted, broke my collarbone, and really kind of forced myself to make a decision. Is this about the circumstances, or is this about my perspective over the circumstances?
Right.
And perspective became my theme and how I viewed everything that was happening to me. And a light bulb went off, and I ended up absolutely loving El Paso. Had an amazing career. I started all 4 years. Mike Price, who created the spread offense, came in my sophomore year. We filled the stadium up every week. We went to a bowl game every year. We won a bunch of games, threw for a bunch of touchdowns, and had an amazing career. And from the viewpoint of just my perspective of what was happening changed, and so all of the outcomes changed as well. And it's really like that experience that is something that is just so powerful that I can give away to younger guys.
So the normal person, I'll call myself a normal person that does not know really what goes on in the NFL other than from the media standpoint, they have no idea what you guys go through. And you even told me ago, I wish I would have, if I knew now what I knew then, boy, it would have been different, even in high school, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of your philosophy of your business now and what you're doing. We had an opportunity to go out over the weekend at San Clemente High School and film for a couple hours. And what a special day that is, I'm sure, every time you get a chance to go out. But you don't lead them just on the football field. You take them on a journey, even to this house here in San Clemente. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think, quarterback so much is about throwing the football, and my experience is just different. I think quarterbacks are different than athletes. I tell quarterbacks, we don't identify ourselves as athletes or as football players. In high school, you got like the soccer guys are over there, and the softball girls are over there, and the football dudes are over there in that corner, and you can segregate out by the sports that you play really easily in high school, especially if you're talking about a pep assembly format, right? Lunch. But quarterbacks are different. When you sign up for quarterback, you sign up for everything, and the good and the bad. And coaches and quarterbacks are really the only two people who have records attached to their name. Nobody ever talks about Jerry Rice and his wins and losses as a player.
Right.
They do with Montana, and they do with Steve Young.
Yeah.
And so with that, we have to identify ourselves differently.
Yeah.
Not above, but you have to actually look at everything that goes into quarterback. And my goal is to help these guys reach their potential. And that may be to start one game your senior year of high school, and that may be to be the third pick in the draft by the New York Jets, or to retire as the 12th greatest passer of all time and my brother. Whatever that is, it's not necessarily up to us, but about reaching our potential is up to us.
Right.
And so when I look at a quarterback and what's different about a quarterback, you get all the love and you get all the hatred and everything in between. And so I really try and help these guys look at their career as I'm just on a quarterback journey.
Yeah.
And even the logo for QB Summit, it's ups and downs. It's a mountain range, right? It's ups and downs. And the idea is that I want to reach the summit, I want to reach, my potential. But to get from here to there, it's going to be a bunch of ups and downs.
Yep.
And if you can take a step back and if let's say it's the worst moment of your life or the worst moment of your career, your journey, if you can take a step back and go, this is just where I'm currently at and I'm going to be somewhere else really soon,
right,
then you cannot let the frustration and the depression and any of the issues that come, again, playing quarterback, it's low lows. And if you're at the top of your career and you really understand how to deal with that, and you understand that at some point it's going to come down.
Yeah, it certainly is.
Then you can remove yourself from that, detach from it, and actually just say, this is where I'm at and this is where I want to go. And this plays out every year.
It's interesting you say that at some point it comes down because, Carson just retired, and when he got hurt, I'm thinking, that's it. That's got to be it. I was thinking in my mind. I also think back, and I've talked about this, when he was in his senior year. You'll remember this, when he was playing the Tustin Tillers in the CIF championship.
One of my favorite games I've ever been to.
Now it's the second. It's right there. Okay, I've got another one that just rivaled it this past year. But until last year, that was my best high school game I've ever covered. Mm-hmm. Him and Deshaun Foster going back and forth. And I remember filming Carson, and I had the shot of him before he went on the field. And I'm like saying to myself, this kid's going to be in the NFL. He just looked like it. He looked like it. Obviously, he was awesome. I think I covered every high school game he ever had at Santa Margarita. I'm pretty sure I do. I'm pretty sure I did. But with that, he really bowed out on his own terms. And not a lot of people can do that. And I had someone tell me the other day what a class act that guy is, and how he bows out. Can you teach that kind of stuff, or is that intuitive, or tell me your thoughts?
I think you have to have, to be an elite quarterback, you have to have, your foundation has to be in humility. And so I take the word humility and put it right here. The second thing I think you have to have, this is the most important aspect I think in a quarterback, is confidence and self-generated confidence, okay? So it's the combination of those two things. People ask me all the time about the it factor or height or arm talent. It's humility, and it's the juxtaposition of humility and confidence. And so if you have those two things, then you can weather the success and the adversity that's gonna come.
Right.
We can weather all that stuff. Can you manufacture those two things is the big question. And I think from my experience that you can. So what I try and do is I don't ever tell any kid what he should do or what I think he should do. So when I transferred from Santa Margarita to Mission Viejo High School, so think about this. All my friends, I had a girlfriend there. All my friends went there. When I transferred to Mission Viejo, I ate lunch with Coach Johnson the first 3 days. I didn't know anybody.
Right.
So I left the private school where all my friends went at 15 or whatever I was, 14, to a public school where I knew no one. And for me to be able to go through that process and take as many things as I can from it, I mean, what it came down to is my dad said, here are your two options, here's the pros and cons of both, but you have to make this decision.
Right.
Well, I look back on it and I go, okay, I married my high school sweetheart from Mission Viejo High School. We have our second kid on the way. I run a business, and I have a few businesses and a couple hundred employees between those couple of businesses, all mission kids. Another business that I'm involved in, silent partner, so to speak, that's growing incredibly fast. It's crazy. 2 mission kids. I'm sitting here going, and then I went on to college and whatever, and I'm like, what an amazing decision. But had my dad told me, you should go to mission, I would have made that decision because somebody told that to me.
Okay.
So with my guys, I always try and say, if they're making a decision, JT Daniels, do I leave college early or not? Which school do I go to? Which agent should I pick? I always sit here and go, all right, these are decisions that you're gonna make now that for the rest of your life, you're gonna look back on and evaluate for the next decisions. And so I try and put them in a position where they can choose between two things, but they have to arrive at that answer.
Gotcha.
And so as you go through that process of making sure that you're completely arriving and you're making all the decisions for yourself, these kids, from a confidence standpoint and from a humility standpoint, putting them in positions to make decisions to choose those two things, not choosing it for them. Yeah. I've seen both of those categories grow big time on guys, and it kind of makes it how well you throw it irrelevant, how tall you are irrelevant, what your 40 time is irrelevant. Yeah. If you can have that humility and that self-generated self-confidence, you don't rely on what everybody else thinks, you can create it yourself, then a guy like Carson, I think you can manufacture those.
When you and I were talking when I got here, and you said, you know, Paul, the coaching in the NFL, the coaching in college is not what you think when it comes to being a quarterback. And sometimes these quarterbacks are put on a pedestal, and sometimes the coaches are a little bit shy and gun shy, so to speak, of telling them what to do and how to do it. You kind of want to change that a little bit, right? You want to add to that quarterback, and when he goes into that mentality of a coach. And so with that said, how do you manufacture that? And you know, like when JT goes on, and Sam's obviously getting ready, and of course Josh Allen and Kyle Allen, who you had just recently. Can you tell me about that? Because they're going to be faced with that situation. You already told me that Sam's going to be fine with the Jets.
Yeah, I think you have to be able to self-correct, right? And so in order to self-correct, meaning Sam throws 3 bad balls in a row, his choices are, what the heck is going on? Or I know exactly what I'm doing right now mechanically, and I just need to change this. What happens is you kind of remove yourself from, like, you don't allow yourself to get frustrated, right? There's no bad days. There's just bad mechanics or sound mechanics. So the idea of getting somebody to self-correction, and this is, middle school kids are doing this. Like, this is not you don't have to be 21 years old to do this. If you can self-correct, then you take things out of the hands of everybody else. And so what I try and do is I simplify it. So when you're throwing, I call it on platform. When feet are set, 2 hands on the ball, and I'm getting ready to throw, there's 4 things you have to do. You have to have a short front stride, you have to stand tall, you have to chase your hip, and you have to finish. So when you can rep that out over the course of...
What was the third one, I'm sorry?
Finish your throwing motion.
What was the one before that?
Chase your hip.
Chase your hip, thank you, okay.
So you want to have a short front stride, stand tall, chase your hip, and finish.
Okay.
So by giving those 4 steps to a quarterback, and then having them rep out what each of those things is supposed to feel like, and that's actually sequentially in order, and then they learn the sequence of those 4 things, then any bad throw they have, once they get to a certain point, any bad throw they have they can immediately, they'll say to themselves, I didn't have a short front stride. I didn't finish that. I didn't chase my hip. I didn't stand tall.
Right.
So 1, 2, 3, or all 4 of those things are off. Fix that one thing and you're good.
Will you go on the road at all? Like, say, for instance, XYZ quarterback that goes through your summit and goes through the training with you. If he calls you and says, hey, man, I'm off, can you fly out? Is that something that you're going to do or that you were already doing?
I don't do a ton of like consultations privately. For me, because I run a business that has nothing to do with coaching, called Common Thread Collective, an online sales agency in Newport Beach. I run that. That's a bulk of my time. This coaching stuff is really my hobby.
Okay.
I started getting inquiries from the NFL and from college football teams to coach, and I love it here. I'm not moving.
Yeah.
I'm undefeated as a coach. And so for me, I really challenge myself. Can I build a really cool coaching business? But more importantly, I am a coach. It's got to come out of me. It's an itch I need to scratch. And so I've been able to do that in Dana Point. And so as I look at that, when I kind of apply that to my guys who are on the road, Bortles in Jacksonville and Deshaun in Houston, and now the guys, Sam and Josh, are on the East Coast. When I look at that, it's a lot of it is what we've done in person. I can have conversations around that over the phone and be helpful. But I don't do a ton of private stuff like that. To be honest with you, I watch a lot of college games on Saturdays.
Yeah.
I TiVo them. I usually have 3 going at once and kind of go back and forth. They're a little process. The NFL, I'll watch my guys. And I've been to 2 high school games in the last 3 years.
Okay.
So
I think I saw you at one of those 2 games.
Yeah. And so for me, I weekends is family time, and my wife loves watching the guys on Saturdays and Sundays.
So do you think that you'll ever, I know you said you love it here and things are going well, but do you ever see you coaching in the NFL on a team?
I think when my kids are gone, I can
Okay.
see us doing that.
Okay.
It's a long ways away.
Yeah, it is a long ways away.
So, but in between now and then, no,
Okay.
I don't. I really love what I'm doing. I can make a really big impact on individual kids, and I really like the idea of helping these middle school kids get ready for high school. Really like the idea of helping these high school kids get ready for that next rung, and that might be getting your first offer, that might be winning a championship, or getting in, getting the awards or whatever the goals are in high school, Elite 11, stuff like that. And then I really like helping guys get ready for the NFL. So it's really, I can be helpful when guys are in that point in their career when they're trying to take a step.
You and I also talked about when I walked in. Sometimes I wish I recorded the interview when I walk in because they're really fun. But and you said it was okay to ask you this, Johnny Manziel. By the time this airs, maybe that decision has already been made. But let's it's now. Do you think he'll ever play in the NFL again? And if not, why? If so, why?
Yeah, I don't. I don't think he's going to get a shot, whether he deserves it or not. But I think the reason is not so much. I don't think it really has anything to do with his current ability to play quarterback in the NFL. I think what happens is, and this happened to Tebow, it's happened a little bit to RG3, and it's happened to certain players. It's happening to Kaepernick, where if you become a really big media sensation for any reason, Kaepernick politically, Tebow, because there's just an aura around him and everybody wanted to rush and there was this fascination with him, good, bad, or ugly, whatever the reason is, if you become a sensation media-wise and you're not a potential superstar starter, so for all of those guys I mentioned, they would be getting jobs as backups, right? Nobody would be handing any of those people a job. Then a team's got to look at it and say, is it worth the media attention and all my coaches and all my players getting interviewed about a player if that player is a backup?
Right.
And if the answer is no, then they've got to think that I can just grab somebody else, sign me off the streets, right? This happened in my last couple of years. I'm not a big distraction in the locker room, just a guy. I think that's the decision that teams make. So I think that right there, the media attention around the potential of signing Johnny Manziel was probably going to prohibit him from getting a shot unless it's with one team, and that's New England.
When you were in the NFL, social media started to take off. When you went in, it wasn't as hot as it is now. How has that changed players' perspective and also the perspective of being a player in the NFL with social media, the good and the bad? And I like to say there's a lot of ugly that goes along with that.
Yeah. I think it does go both ways. The good side of social media is these guys can actually control their own narrative.
Yeah.
so many times a brand and the team owned the narrative, and the media owned the narrative. And so nowadays, I think players have an opportunity, athletes, they are actually brands now.
Yeah.
You know, everybody is actually a brand,
Right.
good or bad.
Yeah.
And then, you know, on the negative side of things, you have to be on at all times. You know, a lot of guys would have been in trouble a long time ago if there was social media around back in the day. So
Yeah.
I think the bad side of it is that you're always liable for everything that comes out of your mouth at all times, because anybody can make something go completely viral in seconds, which is crazy. And the ugly, I mean, Josh Allen had some crazy stuff happen to him the day before the draft.
Right.
Right before, from stuff he retweeted really, when he was 14, 15 years old.
Right.
And the kid's 21 years old, trying to be a franchise quarterback, worked his whole life for it. And to have something that happened only on social media platform when he was 13, 14, and 15, there's ugly too.
Yeah, it would never have been heard of back if it didn't have social media. Can you give a little bit of us an idea who the coaches are that you had out on the camp and the summit? You know, I want to give those guys some credit as well.
Yeah. So one of the things I like to do with QB Summits is, instead of hiring coaches from around the country, you know, I help run the Elite 11, and we've got some amazing staff. But the reality is, I know that high school kids really pay attention to what's happening in college football more than the NFL. And so I usually bring in about 3 to 5 college guys as my coaches who are starting, you know, really good players. And past college counselors are Deshaun Watson came 4 or 5 times, Deshaun Kaiser, Sam Darnold, Jared Goff. Yeah. So I've had a handful of guys come, and they come to each of the camps. And it allows them to speak kind of from the perspective of what's literally next. And I've had guys who were walk-ons who are now playing at a high level.
Wow.
And it just kind of shows you also, it's one thing for me to say, hey, if you put your mind to it, anybody can do anything, right? It's another thing to be standing next to a guy who's a walk-on who's in the league now, and to see that for a young guy.
Right.
And then I like to bring in other, you know, former coaches. So this past weekend we had a summit, and a guy named Mike Shepard, who coached in the NFL for 18 years. He was at the Cincinnati Bengals with me, and works with Fellowship of Christian Athletes. To have him around is awesome.
Right.
You know, Mark Sanchez helping out, and a lot of the former guys helping out. It ends up making a really cool environment where everybody at all ages can take a step forward.
That's the cool thing. You know, recently there was a thing in Pop Warner that they were trying to get in California to disband tackle football on the youth level. Could you give me your thoughts about that? I had Lee Steinberg on the show about 5 years ago, and he told me the story about Troy Aikman, and that's when he realized, oh, we have a problem here. Your thoughts about that? You've played in all levels of football. What will you do when your kids get older?
Yeah. You know, as of right now, my son's 2.5, and he's, fast forward, you know, when he's in high school, the majority of the starting quarterbacks in the NFL are going to be his uncles, be guys he spent a lot of time with. So he's going to love football, whether he plays it or not. He's going to love it. And probably won't let him play tackle football till high school, maybe 8th grade. I started playing in 5th grade. I just know how serious the game is and how violent it is, even at a young age. And in college and the NFL, there's still issues, but there are expert opinions on the sidelines right there. Right. I just don't see that in middle school or high school, really. High school, there's more. Right. And I think there's so many opportunities to develop, you know, at a young age where you can still learn the game. You can play 7-on-7. You can do all of those things. And you know, I played for the South Orange County Patriots. Had nothing but an amazing experience. I loved my time and all that. Just a father speaking. That's probably what I would say is, you know, is as early as 7th grade, probably 8th, and most likely high school.
Are you a fan of a particular team in the NFL? Now that you were there, I mean, when you were a kid, you were probably a fan of somebody's.
We grew up watching the Cowboys, but honestly, Cowboys were winning Super Bowls, so we were bandwagon fans, you know.
Good job, Southern California.
The last few years, it just really, the only team that I've just absolutely, fan is a loose, you know, is a vague term, where I just want them to win and have success has been the teams that my brother plays on. It's hard for me to care at that level with anyone else, because for me, I want all my guys to win the Super Bowl every year. I want them to all win national championships, but the reality is they're going through this journey of ups and downs, and I've had guys win 3 games and Deshaun win the national championship, and I just don't know which one was more fun for me, because I can be really helpful when things are hard. Right. And I can be really supportive when things are going well. And so, I love when my guys have matchups. And but I don't have a favorite college team or NFL team. I really just kind of support the guys where they're at.
Do you go back to Texas to any games at all?
It's been a while.
Yeah.
We had a cool ceremony thing a couple years ago for a bunch of players, and you know, it's just tough during the season. The football season is my downtime.
Is it?
So that's my weekend time. I don't do any camps on the weekends or any of that stuff. So I'm watching games. So really, the only games I go to have been my brother's games. I'd go to a couple. Because if I go to a game on a weekend, it means I'm not really watching any of the other games.
Right.
So I actually prefer my living room over anywhere.
Yeah. Just a couple seconds left with you. How successful will Sam Darnold be?
He's ready to go.
Okay.
You know, I think he's just so humble and he's so confident. And then I think his game really translates to the NFL, his ability to create time and space.
Right. Since we're in here in Southern California, what about Josh Rosen?
I think Josh went to a really good spot. I think the Cardinals are going to be able to build around him. He's got great veterans there to learn the NFL passing game alongside a guy like Larry Fitzgerald with a kid named Christian Kirk, who's going to be a superstar receiver, who's their second or third round pick. I think that's a really good entry point for him.
Josh Allen, of course, going to the Bills, first round, 7th player picked overall, probably do pretty well there.
I think you're going to build a statue of him. He is Buffalo.
And then Baker Mayfield, obviously number 1 with Cleveland. Your thoughts about that situation?
That's the one where I have no idea. They have so much talent on that team. I love the staff, I love all that, but everything's new. GM's new, offense coordinator's new, quarterback coach is new. There's so much new there that I can throw out guesses, but I'm excited to watch it unfold.
Jordan, I am super impressed with what you're doing. What a great, I'll call you a young man still.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the family and being here in Southern California. And you know, it was fun having my son actually film you over the weekend.
Yeah, it was cool.
So congratulations and best of luck to you.
Thank you, appreciate it.